Hi everyone, Russ Thomas here from RST Coaching Academy. Welcome to a new episode of Money Talks, where we talk about money and how to make more of it. Hey, everybody out there in internet land watching Money Talks, listening to Money Talks. Again, this is Russ with RST Coaching Academy, host of Money Talks, live and in person here today, right this minute from Daytona Beach, Florida. And I'm here to introduce a new friend of mine. I just met him a week ago at a networking meeting here in Daytona Beach. His name is Fred Bergeron, and he lives just up the road from Daytona, a town called Ormond Beach. And I'm anxious to have him introduce himself and tell you all about his life as a videographer, a podcaster, a photographer, and other things he's done. And he spent some time probably living in his car. He was homeless for a while, and we want to hear about that and how he got out of it. So let's get going here without further ado. Fred, welcome to Money Talks tonight, where we're going to talk about money and how to make more of it. I guess, you're going to hopefully give some tips into the expertise that you have in your field, and hopefully it'll be useful to the people that are listening and watching. So Fred, take it away. Tell us about Fred.
Thank you. Thank you, Russ. Well, I'm Fred Bergeron, and to piggyback off of what Russ said, I used to be homeless for about 9 months to a year, and it was on two different occasions. And how that happened was I had a high-paying corporate job, and on Valentine's Day 2001, I got the surprise notice that I got fired. And it was at that point that my homeless journey started, because I had just purchased a brand new car the month before, and I was about a year and a half from paying off my home. And by the time I got another job, I was making quite a bit less. So it was hard for me to pay my mortgage, hard for me to pay on my car loan. So I ended up losing both of them. I did sleep in and out of my car one time. It wasn't the same one that got repossessed, but I was sleeping in and out of my car. I was sleeping at a truck stop out of my car. I was sleeping in a tree house at a friend's house. They had it in their backyard for their kids. I've stayed at the Salvation Army several times. So I've stayed at several places, Russ, when I was homeless at the time, just trying to stay afloat. And what a lot of people don't know, Russ, is I was actually homeless with a job. And like I said, the job I had was making sufficiently less than I was making before. So I had to finally give in and say, okay, I gotta do this. Think of how I'm going to get out of it. And like I said, probably about a year after I became homeless, I had the opportunity with the job I was working at.
Just a second, Fred, hang on a second. What was your corporate job? The high paying,
I was
job.
working at a tire manufacturing company.
Okay.
They've since closed down, but I was working for a tire manufacturing company back in Georgia. And where I lived at, there were a lot of factories. There was a peanut factory, a tire factory, Procter and Gamble, and we were just in some of those things happened. Either people got laid off, or in my case,
All right.
I got fired.
What was your position there?
The last job I had, I was a tire inspector. I had had several jobs in between there, but my last job was as a tire inspector, where we basically looked at tires when they came down the production line and checked them for any flaws. And I was in a phase in my life where my father had just passed away. There were things going on with the will and his estate that was really messing with my head. So part of it was I wasn't in the right state of mind, and it really affected my job. And I ended up getting fired over it. So part of that I'll take the blame for, Russ. That I wasn't in the right state of mind for a while after my father passed away.
Yeah. Well, that's a rough thing to go through. There's no doubt about it. And then when the company doesn't cut you a whole lot of slack to get through that rough time, there you go. So
Right.
probably happens every day someplace around here, someplace around the country. So anyway, I just wanted to get that part of your background as to that you were in the corporate world and how that dissolved basically. But it sounds like as we're going to proceed in your story, that ultimately new vistas of opportunity opened up for you and you were ready to take hold of them, correct?
Yeah, correct. So while I was working this other job that making less money, I had an opportunity to come up with the same company. It was working in retail where we would travel on the road to set up new stores or remodel existing ones.
Mhm.
So they basically like tripled our salary being on that cruise. So I jumped at the chance to do it.
Mhm.
So I took full advantage of, and I'm a bachelor and I was a bachelor then as well. So I didn't have really anybody to answer to or go back to or find out why I was gone all the time. So I took advantage of that. And, with that extra money I was making, I just eventually was able to pay off some of my debt. And then I found a very inexpensive apartment to live in. And then I got a nice paying job after that. Unfortunately, I got laid off, but that kind of is what helped me get out of homelessness before I
Got it.
moved back to Florida.
Okay. Now, you said that the triple the income helped you pay off your debt. Well,
Hmm.
you lost your house,
Hmm.
correct? And you
Hmm.
lost your car, I assume,
Hmm.
but you had other debts. Why didn't you file bankruptcy?
Because I was actually talking to a credit repair person who was trying to help me with my credit, and she said that's the last thing you want to do is file
Amen.
for,
Yep.
for bankruptcy. And I really wasn't going to, but I got to really contemplating about it. And that's what she told me. She said, nope, you don't want to. She said, just pay your bills when you can, or if you can pay a little bit at a time, do that. She said, but you do not. She said, that will haunt you for 7 years or more. So I
Right.
never did. And
Yep.
I was able
Yep.
to reestablish my credit. It took a while, but I was finally able to reestablish my credit over time.
Yeah. And folks listening and watching, listen to that. If you're in a tight spot, a rough situation financially, take it from Fred, take it from me. Bankruptcy is not the solution. My wife and I were in that position many years ago, and we had to decide, are we going to do it or not? And we ended up saying, hey, we made commitment to take care of these bills. And by the grace of God, we did. It did take a long time, just like with Fred. But don't do that if you're not totally forced into that corner. Agreed, Fred?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. All right.
110%.
Good deal. All right. Continue.
Okay. So after that, I ended up moving back to Ormond Beach, Florida, because I was a government contractor, and for some reason we all got laid off, and my
Mhm.
brother had passed away suddenly in December of 20 of what was it, 2009. And I figured, well, why not come back home, support my mom, and I'll find a job when I get here. So that was my main reason from moving from Georgia back to Florida was because of my brother passing away and then getting laid off from my government contractor job.
Got it. Okay. Welcome home.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so then what happened?
Well, then I was taking care of my mom for a little bit, so I was kind of her caretaker for a little bit. And how I really ended up here, Russ, was I was actually going back to Georgia. I was visiting on the 4th of July, and my right rear tire blew and put me into a guardrail. And I told him my SUV I was fine, just the guardrail and my vehicle had a lot to desire after that. And thank goodness my mom was pretty close. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to move back here. I said, I don't really have a job to go back to anyway. So I brought my stuff back, took care of her for about 4.5 years. And then she passed away in 2019. And from that point forward, I was on my own. Not that I wasn't ready to be on my own, Russ. Just, when you take care of a parent, whether they live with you or you live with them, it takes a lot away from your social life and a
Mm,
lot of things you want to do. And my mom was also very religious, but she had health issues too, as we all know when you get older. So I guess I was her caretaker for 4.5 years. So that took a lot away from my social life, a lot of things I wanted to do. And I don't wish this on anybody, but in a way, her passing was a blessing to me because now I don't have that burden of watching her. I can be myself again. I can have a social life again. So I'm not saying that in a bad way at all, Russ. I'm just saying I think in a way it was a blessing in disguise.
okay. Well, there's trouble that faces all of our lives. And I've always said, um, we can't help what happens to us, but we are responsible for how we respond. And that's what makes us or breaks us, isn't it? Is how we respond to the difficult circumstances in life. Because all of us have those things. Some people cringe, some people toughen in and just go on through. And I think you're a go on througher guy, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'll go on through, a follow through guy, and a get it done type of guy.
Right on. Okay, so we haven't gotten into the photography, the podcasting, live streaming, and all that stuff yet. How did all this transpire from a tire inspector to what was it, a store opener guy and a
Yes.
government employee? And now all of a sudden you're back in the home turf here in the Daytona Beach area, Ormond Beach,
Mhm.
and you must be making some kind of a decision to make a different change in your life, right?
Yes, and actually, I started out in real estate because a lot of my friends were in real estate, even when I lived in Georgia. And I wanted to try my hand at real estate, and it wasn't my cup of tea, Russ. I really tried it. I would reach out to buyers, and a lot of them were just tire kickers, and the sellers wanted you to cut your commission. And just I was getting too many of those, so I got to the point where either I'm not cut out for this or I got to really change my mindset or my marketing tactics. Then I just found I was just wasting too much money to hold on to something that just was not working for me. And my personal development coach had me realize in one of our sessions that I was chasing the money, but in reality there was really no money coming in. And she knew me for a while, and the more she spoke to me, she found out my passion was more in photography. She said, "You need to drop the real estate altogether and you need to go back into photography." And I took photography as an elective, Russ, at one of my college courses. And then I only took it a little bit when I was in real estate taking listing photos. So I wasn't really taking it a whole lot. And then when the pandemic hit us, I saw an advertisement on TV where this lady was taking photos while social distancing.
Hmm.
So I was like, I need to pull my camera back out and blow the dust off. So I pretty much got back into photography right when the pandemic hit.
Uh-huh.
I was just taking a lot for fun. Like I'd walk on the beach while social distancing or wearing a mask, and I would just take random photos of the condos or the water or the seagulls, you name it. And it was actually very refreshing. And then the more I got to do it, and I had another session with my coach. He said, "Have you tried videography?" I said, "Well, I've dabbled in it." I said, "I haven't done it a whole lot." So I invested in a course about 2.5 years ago. I saw one online. It was very inexpensive. It was an online course, basically teaching you things from the basics, the equipment you need, and that you don't need very expensive equipment, to editing, and a little bit on the business itself. So just a little bit of everything there. So I dabble in videography, but my passion lies more in photography because I've been doing it a heck of a lot longer.
Uh-huh.
So videography I like to do as well, but like I said, it's probably second to photography because I've been doing, like I said, since the college elective back in the late 80s. I just dabbled in videography, like I said, in about 2022, somewhere around there. I really
Uh,
didn't start
would,
until. Mhm.
two things. When you got into both of these, the photography training and interest in that and the videography part, were you looking at either of these as a business, as a potential income earner, or was it primarily as a hobby?
Oh, initially they've always been for to try to have it as a business, especially when I
Okay.
started taking videography, and then I stumbled across another another entity where they teach you how to get well, they teach you more about the business and how to get the right type of clients and how to set your pricing right and things like that. Well, during
Okay.
that time, I found a full-time job that I didn't want to let go of. I figured, well, I can still do this on the side,
Mm-hmm.
until I can generate a steady stream of income doing it, and then eventually maybe walk away from that corporate job. But you asked me
Right.
about podcasting earlier, and that
Uh-huh.
also ties into the pandemic, Russ, where a friend of mine who was in Daytona leadership with me back in 2020, she started doing just fun podcasts, just random interviews, nothing special, no theme or anything like that. And she invited me one day, and we had a blast. And at the end of the podcast, I told her, I said, "You just gave me an idea for my business." And this is when I was in real estate and doing credit repair and real estate photography. I said, "I'm going to start doing podcasts and bringing guests in or start doing monologues." And I was also the public relations manager for a local Toastmasters organization, and I implemented podcasts, and they were all virtual because we were in the pandemic.
Ah,
And after the pandemic, the people who succeeded me, because it's a year term, have brought the podcast forward since then. So that's what got me hooked on podcasting was my friend who interviewed me. I was hooked.
on her podcast, she
Yes,
interviewed you and you
yes,
got all fired up and said, I
yes,
want to do this, right?
exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Cool. Now, um, the other thing I was going to mention about, was did this start out as a hobby or a business? And you said you really were thinking of it in terms of business. I wanted to also ask you about your propensity for photography and videography. My dad was a professional photographer. He was an artist. He could paint, he could sculpt, and of course he could take professional portraits and so on. And that was his business. He had a natural propensity for that. I assume you did too. And when you got into that realm, it just kind of sparked that whole maybe innate ambition or desire or passion you might not have hardly even been aware of. Am I close to
Yeah,
being accurate
you're
here?
fairly close because I took that photography class and I said I kind of put my camera down after that, and then I started just taking more either with my phone or with my DSLR I had at the time, and then I just started dabbling around with some photo editing and kind of self-evaluating myself. Or I'd even get brave when Facebook was out and I'd start posting photos. Most of them were pretty good, and a lot of people were giving me kudos and great feedback. A few weren't, but that was several years ago. But I'm like, well, this is the kind of stuff I want to hear. I even had some professional photographers tell me, well,
Mhm.
try this, or don't try this. So I took that to heart. So then I was started to dig up some of my photos from the archives. I'm like, maybe I can start putting some of my photos up. I visited Alcatraz back in 2019, took some photos, put them up there. People liked them. So I was like, and at that point, I wasn't trying to do it for happy. I was just trying to let people know, hey, these are the images I took. And then
Uh-huh.
the more I started doing it, the more I got hooked. I'm like, I need to start considering about trying to do this for a living. Now, the funny part, you're talking about the propensity and kind of falling into it. I don't know if this happened by accident, Russ, or it's coincidental, but my aunt, one of my dad's sisters, was a photojournalist several years ago because we used to visit my parents and my grandparents in Massachusetts, and she was
Uh-huh.
always taking photos, and she had a paper she was taking photography for, and I was probably maybe 10 or 12 years old,
Oh,
just like being introduced to it and thought it was real cool. Never thought about it. I've never even reached out to her for any help or advice, Russ. I just dawned on me when people ask me about this. I said, well, coincidentally, my aunt was a photographer. I said, maybe it's in our blood, but I never got any lessons from her. I never reached out to her or anything like that. So, like I said, maybe it's in my blood and I didn't know it.
right. Yeah. Well, and oftentimes when that is the case, it's just kind of suppressed, shall we say, for one reason or another, not on purpose, but it's just not at the forefront. And then something, a life change or some circumstance, conversation or whatever might, bam, spark that thing. And they're like, whoa, all of a sudden, whoa, where did that come from? Well, guess what? It's been in you all your life. You just didn't know it. And now
Right.
that you know it, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do about it? And so you had the sense not to put it off and say, well, no, I'm doing this other thing. You said, you know what? I'm going to be serious about this. I see something here for me and I want to pursue it. And folks, that's the big deal. There's something innate about you that you may not even be aware of right now, but something's going to pop up in your mind. Something's going to come to the forefront of you and you're going to say, whoa, this is it. This is it. And when that happens, you need to go for it with all your heart. Go for it and don't stop. All right? Go ahead, Fred. Continue.
Yeah. Well, back to photography, Russ. One of my specialties that I like taking photos of is night photography. And
Hmm.
I grew to like it when I was looking at all these pictures. And what really attracted me was when I saw like these little starbursts in the lights and just how some of the colors resonated. I'm like, how do they do that? So I researched it a little bit. The DSLR camera I had, I followed some of the instructions I saw, but it was such a low-end camera, I didn't get the results that I wanted. So I traded it in for uh, another camera, what they call a smart camera. So it still does the manual settings, but it also has specialty features. So I played around with the manual settings, like with the slow shutter speed or even the night settings. And I was surprised. And then now your phones can even do them.
Huh.
So I'm over, and I was just playing around one day, and I was just amazed at how they turned out by just playing around with it. So I take a lot of night photos, whether people want to pay me to take night photos or I just post them online. That is my forte, taking night night photographs. I just like the look of how they come out. And I found out, Russ, that when you take night photography, you do not use a flash because it gives you too much light,
Ah,
and then you have to either pretty much have to have your phone or your camera either on a tripod or on something steady because of the slow shutter speed,
yeah.
because any slight movement is going to get blurry.
Uh-huh. Okay, got it. So we're from photography, videography, podcasting. I think another thing you mentioned was live streaming. That
Yes.
you, if I'm not mistaken, from our conversation last week, you will actually produce live streaming uh,
Mhm.
issues or things for clients. Is that
I
correct?
did. I did when I first launched my previous business up because like I said, it was real estate. It was real estate sales, credit repair, and
Uh-huh.
real estate photography. So I would have people on my live stream broadcast talking about their business. Then I would do a little bit of editing, send it to them. I put it on my Facebook pages and I put it on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And I wasn't charging them, Russ, because the concept I was trying to do was twofold. Was one, I was trying to get them to promote themselves and their businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
number two, I was trying to get my name out there for providing the platform and trying to get some income that way, either on the sometime on the real estate and either the transactional side, the credit repair, or the photography. Just trying to then that was kind of my segue to that was I didn't charge them. It was kind of a free promo thing to try to draw business in for both the client and myself. And I actually interviewed two people running for political office on my live stream. One of them won, the other one didn't. And the funny thing, Russ, is the first one I interviewed, I had already done 2 or 3 live stream podcasts that I posted on my Facebook pages and my YouTube channel. And he emailed me and he says, "Hey," he said, "I saw a couple of your podcasts." He said, "How would you like to interview me?" And it was Will Roberts. The
Uh-huh.
excuse me. It was Will Roberts, the I call him the tax guy. And he called me and he just said, "Would you like to do an interview with me?" He said, "I'd like to talk about my position and what it entails." And I asked him, and I know his wife too. I said, "Just let me know what I can and can't say so neither one of us get in trouble." And his wife emailed me and said, "Okay, here's what you can and can't say." And Will didn't even know what was sent to me. I mean, he probably had an idea, but it went pretty good. And Will ended up winning the election. I doubt it was from my podcast, but it was a very fun. It was a
Oh,
very
I
fun
suppose.
podcast, and I was flattered that he reached out to me and had me do it. And this was the first time I experienced a glitch in my podcast, and I didn't edit it out. I just left it. But I was using a Bluetooth speakerphone at the time, and apparently it was rebooting, and it said Bluetooth connecting in the middle of the podcast. And I'm like, well, I'm not about to stop the middle of the podcast because of this.
Yeah.
And you can still hear it's good. It's just that one little glitch you can hear in the background. So I just left it there.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause it's stuff like that keeps you humble, right, Fred?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
indeed. Yeah. Oh, that's really a cool experience, no doubt. And that was an instance of something that came out of the blue that you weren't even expecting to happen, but it was a direct result of you putting yourself out there and trying to make a name for yourself and actually serve the community by helping other people, business people, and so on. And so it came back to you. The people that I work with, one of their mantras is give, give, give. Even if you don't get anything back from them, what goes around comes around. It's called the principle of sowing and reaping. People in the world call it karma, but nevertheless, it's a viable principle, and you're living proof right there how that happened. So we have photography, videography, podcasting, live streaming. How have you tied all of this into a business for Fred?
Well, it's still a work in progress for us until I can,
Okay.
get some steady clients. But the name of the business is called 386 Studios, and it's 386 obviously because of the
Area
area
code.
code we live
Uh-huh.
in. But you know what I found out? If you type 386 on your phone, it spells fun.
Yeah, yeah. That's what 386, you got the F, the U, and the N, the
Correct.
386, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
That's how
I,
they
I found
invented
that
that
out.
years ago. We used to be area code 904, like
Mhm.
up in Jacksonville. But they said, well, it's getting too crowded in this area, so let's change it. And they chose
I
fun.
remember.
So,
Yeah, I was
yeah,
I was living here when they did. So yeah, my business is called 386 Studios, and I do, like I said, primarily photography, but I do photography, videography, live streaming. Um, put you on podcasts. I can do monologues. So if people want to reach out to me, they can. I
Are
mean,
you are you 386studios.com? You have a website or just
it was
Facebook?
386studios.com, but I had to shut the website down because I was working with somebody that I wasn't getting the results I wanted, so we shut the website now. But they can, I do have a Facebook business page, and it's facebook.com/386 studios.
Okay, my advice would be to
Mhm.
fire up a website again, because you can do a lot more with a website than just the Facebook page.
Right.
From the Facebook page, you can show your pictures and the videos and all that, but then what you want to do is direct people to where they can really do something, get somewhere, and that would be on your website. 386studio.com or studios.com or .us or something, but I would really strongly advise that you do that. Are you still working with your personal development coach?
Yes, I just had a meeting with her yesterday as well.
Keep going, listen to what she's got to say. That's why we make the big bucks, because we give such good advice to our clients, folks. Yeah, whether it's lifetime individual advice or business advice. So that's what you've done thus far that you got going right now is the Facebook. Any other ways that you're marketing your services?
Just word of mouth or like networking events that I've met you at,
Okay,
Russ, just letting people know what my business is and letting them know that's how we met, obviously. So
that's right.
that's my
Exactly.
other means right now is just good old fashioned word of mouth and networking.
Okay. And I understand you have a full-time job doing something else in the daytime, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So do you have a goal in the near future of being able to walk away from that and to do this full time?
Once, like I said, once I can get some steady clients and it has to at least double the income I'm making now, then I can. So that is my goal. My long-term goal is to get steady clients,
Uh-huh.
clients who are willing to pay my prices. And something I learned in one of my business courses, Russ, is that there's three kinds of people. There's freeple, there's cheaple, and then there's freeple. The freeple are obviously the people that want things for free. And then the cheaper are people that want things at a discounted price. And as that coach was saying, those are people that would much rather go to McDonald's than Outback Steakhouse.
Yes.
And then the people are the premium people who would much rather go to Outback Steakhouse than McDonald's. So that was one thing I learned in one of my courses as well.
And what's the third kind?
That's I also said the
Oh, I thought
premium
you said there
people.
I thought you said there was three types of people.
Yeah, freeple, cheaple, and
Oh,
prequel.
cheapo. Tell me
Free,
the third again.
yeah, freeple for free
Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
cheaple, cheap
Yep.
people,
Yep.
and prequel, premium people.
Premium, Prepo. Got it. That's the ones you want. Honestly, though, in a marketing situation, sometimes you've got to give something away for free to give some value, and then the plan is to upsell them. Typically, it's easier to make the second and third sale than it is the first sale. But if it's something, especially a freebie, free advice or a free photograph or whatever the case may be, that's what I do in some of my seminars is I'll offer a free ebook or something. If you put together an ebook or a photo book or something just to pass out for free. And what are you doing? You're collecting their names, you're collecting their email addresses, maybe their phone numbers, and then follow up with those people. But that's a way of marketing sometimes, is the free part of it, just to get a hook in the person's mouth to get their attention. So
Right, and I
anyway,
agree because I'm actually trying to set up another free photography session. I set
uh,
one up in the land about 3 weeks ago, but a lot of last minute stuff came up for a lot of people that were supposed to attend, so they didn't show up. So I'm going to move it closer to the Daytona area and offer it again for free. So that's one way I'm doing it. And it's funny you mentioned ebooks because I told you I finished an ebook on me being homeless. I'm getting another set of eyes on it before it gets published. And then my next ebook is going to be on photography with your smartphone because a lot of people don't
ooh,
realize you can take good photos with your smartphone with just some basic knowledge and some common sense. You can take great photos with just your phone, and a lot of photos you'll see on my Facebook business page were done with my phone.
That is the ticket. That's your way in to the hook in people's mouth. Hey, sign up today for my free ebook on how to take great, awesome photos on your smartphone and fill it with information, fill it with some sample pictures and put it out there. But don't forget to collect the information from those people and then
Right.
follow up with them.
Yeah, that's the idea of my first free course is to get people in, and I'm not going to go in depth. It's just going to be a basic course. Have them
Yep.
sign in, and then I'm going to
Yep.
say, if you'd like to learn more about photography, I offer a 6-week course for this much
Uh-huh.
or a one-time course for this much.
There you go. That's it. And then you're starting with the freebie to get their attention, give them some value in that first session, but then say, hey, there's more, and I've got more for you. So in wrapping this up, Fred, what advice would you have for somebody that maybe they haven't been homeless, but they've been around the block with a number of jobs and maybe some frustration with their careers and stuff, but they're kind of toying with some ideas of stepping out into something new, maybe something that has popped up inside of them that they just realized. Got any advice for these people that would be watching and listening to this program?
Yes, I would say be persistent. Like if you're homeless or on the verge of being homeless, just hit the ground running. Try knocking on doors of employers, going online, even if you have to use the library, if you can't afford a computer to apply that way, get help with some resumes, which is something I'm trying to get for the homeless, is to teach them
Uh-huh.
how to do resumes, but also have a plan B. That's something my coach and I were talking about yesterday. Is have a plan B. And what a lot of people don't know, Russ, is I have 2 college degrees and I'm a Navy veteran and I became homeless. So don't take it for granted that it won't happen to you,
Yeah.
because the moment you think that, chances are it will. But have a plan B in mind as well. Don't just stick to plan A.
What's your plan B?
Oh, my plan B is what I'm already working on. Is I'm trying to get the word out there that I was homeless and speak at a lot of organizations. A lot of them are going to be pro bono.
Uh-huh.
I just got my application accepted for the Volusia County Schools. So I'm going to be speaking from people between elementary school kids to middle school and even some high school and even some faculty and teachers. And I'll probably be doing a lot of that for free. So the other word of advice I would give people, Russ, if they've fallen on hard times or had some type of objects in their way, is don't be afraid to tell your story. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And I like to have a saying that rhymes, and that is, don't hide your pride. There's nothing wrong with letting people know you've fallen on hard times, because that was why I think I was homeless for as long as I was, and it took me a
Oh,
while to recover because I was embarrassed. I
oh
didn't
yeah.
want to, I didn't want to, and my mom found out later before I moved back here, and she was like, she told my brother and sister-in-law, I had no idea he was homeless. He could have moved back here. And she's right, I could have, but I was just too embarrassed to let her know.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, at least you pulled yourself out of it. Thank God for that. It just sometimes we make wise decisions and maybe sometimes we don't make such wise decisions. But I like that part. Be persistent, hit the ground running, get a target in mind, start pursuing it, don't give up. But in the course of that pursuit, learn all you can. Get information from other people that can guide you along the way. Have a plan B in case plan A isn't working out so well, something to fall back on. Some would say maybe that's not so good because then you're not going to put all 110% into your plan A because, well, if this doesn't work, I'll do that. So I don't know, the jury's probably out on that subject, but nevertheless, not everything that we try works especially the first time. It usually takes a while to break through, to get through some hardship in order to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish. And then don't be too proud. Don't be too proud to ask for help. Don't be too proud to tell your story. That's what Fred is telling. And that's what he did here today. He opened his heart to us and explained where he came from, the pitfalls that he's experienced and things that have happened in his life, and how he, by persistence and continuing on, is tunneled through these things, and he is where he is today. You know what? He's not where he wants to be, but he's on his way. And I believe he's got a clear path on the way to that goal. And one of the things that he's taken advantage of, which I advise you folks to take advantage of, is a coach. And that's what I do. I'm an individual and business coach, licensed with Grant Cardone as a certified business coach. I can help you in these areas. Anyway, anything that we can do for you, let us know. Do you prefer that people contact you on your Facebook page, or do you want to give out your phone number, Fred?
I can give my phone number, but let me give a quick plug too. If you want to hear more about my story, you can find it on YouTube. It's called My Story, and it's my first and last name, Fred Bergeron. And it was at Elevate Daytona. You've heard of that event?
That was a church.
Elevate Daytona is a speaking event they have. Used to be twice a year. It's once a year.
Oh, okay.
Now,
there's a church in town called Elevate. That's why
yes.
I thought it was that.
Anyway, my phone number, I can give my phone number and my email address. Russ, my phone number is 386 405 4455.
Got it.
And my email address is F as in my first name, my last name, Bergeron. So it's F Bergeron, the number 2.
Okay, just a second now. People don't know you're French, and they don't know that's a soft G. So spell your last name, okay?
Yes, be glad to. B like Bravo, E like Echo, R like Romeo, G like Giraffe, E like Echo, R like Romeo, O like Oscar, and like November.
There you go.
And the number 2 at gmail.com.
At Gmail.
Yeah, and people can reach out to me if they want me to do some public speaking, either at their event, at the school, at a church, anything like that. I'll be glad to do it. You know, like I said, pro bono, and then eventually, I can become a keynote speaker.
Right on. And you'll have something to follow up with for people that come to those events and say, if you want more information, go here, whatever. There you go. That'll help you get going.
Russ.
So folks, want to thank you for tuning in today. Fred, thank you for spending this evening with me here online to record this podcast. And it's been great talking with you, getting to know you better. And it's been a fun time. And I thank you for the information of you sharing your life. And folks, thanks for tuning in. I hope it was informative to you and a blessing to you. Get a hold of Fred if you want, 386-405-4455, or Fred Bergeron, Bergeron, numeral 2 at gmail.com.
Actually, that's F Bergeron too. Russ.
What did I say? G?
You said my name. It's F Bergeron too.
F Bergeron, pardon me. Or 386 Studios on Facebook. And if he takes my advice, he's going to have a website pretty soon also, and he'll have it all built out on his website. So anyway, anything I can do for you, let me know. rstcoachingacademy.com, 386-286-2450. This is Russ and Fred signing off for another episode of Money Talks, where we talk about money and how to make more of it. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Over and out. Hi, thanks for being here today for another episode of Money Talks. I hope it was informative and encouraging to you. If it struck a chord in your heart, or if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Visit us at rstcoachingacademy.com, call 386-286-2450, or send an email to email@rstcoachingacademy. Thanks again, and until next time, be great.